thanks to everyone, and I learned so much about myself. I didn't, I wasn't aware Renee was mad after that meeting, but now I know. I didn't know that Catherine Gretzinger often disagreed with me, but now I know. No, this is just amazing, and to be honored on a night with a giant, you know, like Scott McIntyre, that it's incomprehensible for me, and I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the Vancouver Asian Heritage Month Society, Winnie, Jim Wong Chu, and you know, Jan, all the people who did this. When they first brought it to my attention, I was wondering, why am I getting this award? And then I thought, is it because I was the first person in the media to contact Todd Wong? And then I thought, maybe it's because I bought Sid Tan lunch once at House of Dosa. And no, but seriously, an award like this is actually a reflection of a lot of people. And, you know, I'm the guy who's the editor, and I'm doing this. But let's not kid ourselves. The McLeod family has been allowing people to bring voices forward in this city that we are not seeing in other parts of the country, and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. And, yeah. And I want to thank Dan, who is at a convention, Dan's wife, Yolanda, who's worked extremely hard distributing the paper for many, many years, going out on weekends in rain, getting our paper out there, and she's worked extremely, extremely hard. Matt, who's Dan's son and who's playing a major role in many aspects of our company. But when you see people on the cover of the Georgia Straight, like Ken Lum, or Paul Wong, or Anita Majumder, or Lang Lang, and Nazni Nafsinjam. Like we try to have diverse covers. Taiwan Fest, Matt plays a key role in that. And so, you know, there's the art side. I'd like to talk about Craig Takeuchi, who's a very, you know, you saw Craig here. Craig is a star. He's very thoughtful and been one of my great teachers. One of the things that Craig didn't say is, how did he get into the media? Well, who gave him a chance? Jim Wong Chu. Jim Wong Chu is the person, so I want to publicly thank Jim Wong Chu for giving Craig the confidence to do what he does in terms of leveling the playing field in terms of diversity in Vancouver, because Craig does a fabulous job. Another one of our great reporters is Carlito Pablo, who's just over there. And how did I come to know Carlito Pablo? Well, it was funny. His first meeting, Carlito had been a national reporter in the Philippines. And I thought, oh, I'm this tough guy. I'm going to ask him tough questions about media law. And this guy had never reported in Vancouver, and he knew more about media law than almost any reporter working in Vancouver. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But how did I come to know about Carlito? It was a publisher who's over there, Ted Alquitas. Ted Alquitas came to me, and he said, you got to give this guy a chance. He's really good. And so I want to publicly thank Ted Alquitas for bringing Carlito to the Georgia Straight. Because if it weren't for Ted, Carlito wouldn't be doing this. And thank you, Ted. I appreciate that. Now, another person who's been doing great work for us is Michelle De Silva. And Michelle, she can babble away in Cantonese. Her Cantonese is better than mine, although I probably swear more in Cantonese than she does. But that aside, Michelle, and she's actually worked very hard to learn Mandarin, too. And that's not easy when you're Canadian-born. But she grew up, could speak Cantonese, does interviews in Mandarin. Well, one of the reasons, why is Michelle working for us? It was Tung Chan. I said, Carlito and me have both talked to Tung. Well, what can we do to better cover the Chinese community and the first generation Chinese community? And Tung's line was, you have to hire someone who can speak the language. So I just want to, Tung isn't here tonight, but I want to thank Tung, because that is one of the reasons why Michelle is doing what she's done. Carrie Jiang may not be completely thrilled about this because Michelle interviewed the Richmond restaurateur who called Carrie a banana, and then this was about the shark fin soup, and then I called up Carrie, and Carrie offered his response. But that's, when you look at this Georgia Strait and you see if you see things that you may not be seeing in other publications, it's because of people like Ted Alquitas, and because of people like Jim Wong Chu, and because of people like Tung Chan, who are making the media more diverse. Carolyn Ali, and Bob was talking about, he went through Chinatown with Carolyn Ali, and Carolyn Ali is an interesting character in that she says she's eaten through 40 countries. And Carolyn has lived in Thailand, she's lived in Japan. Her father is Indian from Trinidad, but he's Bengali. And so Carolyn, she's very good at catching things in the paper that she thinks may be offensive to certain people, certain communities. So, Carolyn is playing a valuable role there. She's not the only one, but she's good at it, and just the way the copy goes through the system. Another thing I'd like to mention is the contributors too, and we've heard from some of them. We heard Renee, whose story was fabulous. If you can go onto the Georgia Strait website and read her article about the Air India 25th anniversary and what it says about Canada and what it says about the other, it's a real lesson, and it was a fabulous piece of work. Gurpreet, who's been just one of the most fearless journalists I've ever met in my life. And Gurpreet is delivering high quality work. He has educated me, actually. Like, we know a lot about or lots of us do, the history of Canada. But what Gurpreet is, and the racist history of Canada, but what Gurpreet has educated me about, which is quite remarkable for an immigrant to come here, is he's taught me about how the Indian pioneers actually had an effect on India. And he's done calendars, and he's done all these things to educate people and provide role models for young people. And he's just a fabulous human being. And the same I could say with Bill Chu, in that he has taught me how colonialism, the opium trade from India to China, and then how that drove immigration to Canada, how the pieces fit together. And I think we have to think about how things that happen in Vancouver can have ricochet around the world and vice versa. So an example is, I just learned this recently, was in 1908, what was happening was basically Canada was trying to stop people from Asia from coming to Canada. And so you had the continuous migration legislation to stop people from South Asia. You had the head tax to stop people from China. But in 1908, the federal government made a deal with Japan to limit immigration from Japan to 1,000 a year to Canada. And that's why the Japanese community, and it followed the year after the race riots, the attack in Japantown. So what happened at that point was Brazil actually said, we'll accept lots of Japanese people. And so I learned this from a Liu Institute scholar who's from Brazil, and she was telling me, and right now in Sao Paulo, there's apparently 1.4 million people of Japanese descent. And part of that is because we weren't going to accept them. And it was a tremendous loss for our country. So I think that's something I like to do in the media, is to try to make those connections and see how something happening here might ricochet around the world, or vice versa. And I also want to thank my friends, David Wong. You've been a great teacher. I see Sid Tan. Sid has been tireless in terms of standing up for the seniors, and is an activist. And Sid has also, behind the scenes, done quite a lot to kind of create this Pan-Asian community in Vancouver by bringing people together, having people support one another. I see Andy Yan sitting here, and Andy is somebody who's been a great teacher of mine in terms of understanding diversity issues, and one of the smartest people I know. So, all of you have helped if you think I've done good work, you guys should give yourself a pat on the back, because that's very central. And my friend Fareed Rouhani, sitting in the back, has educated me about many, many things, including the human rights situation in Iran, which I find interesting and peruse. And I can remember a few years ago where we did a cover story with Nazanin Afshinjam, and this was before she married a conservative cabinet minister. And Nazanin was actually trying to stop child executions in Iran. So how did she do it? She did it by becoming a beauty queen, which was kind of counterintuitive. So Pieta Woolley wrote quite a fun story about that. But we've received so much from the world, and the Ismaili exodus is a good example of what the Ismaili community has done for Vancouver. And that's another situation. You know, we had this crazy situation happening in Uganda with Idi Amin and East Africa, and Canada made the right decision. Said, come here, help build our country, and we're the better for it. I'm concerned right now when I look at, you know, you saw the pain in the Chinese community from the head tax, the Exclusion Act, and families being separated for generations. I can remember talking to Don Lee, the former city councilor and school trustee, and he was born, I think, in 1936. He couldn't come here till he was like 13 or 14 years old. He never really even knew his dad. We're doing it again, I think, with the live-in caregiver program, and I'm looking forward to the next generation of activists going at this and saying, why is Canada doing this again, separating families, separating mothers from their children? It's something that troubles me. I want to also tip my hat to Joan Anderson, who was an executive at CBC, who taught me how you can actually change a workplace and incorporate diversity. Joan isn't here, but Catherine's nodding her head. You know, Joan did a great job, and she influenced me. I want to thank the Leong family. I don't think there's anyone here, but for giving me a job in a corner store many years ago where I could learn some Chinese and say, Gum yat, gay diem sao gong. Sao gong. Ten yat, I say man man fan gong. Yat yat fan gong. And then I won't say any swear words. Mocho. Gum yat, jin tao fat. That means today I had a haircut. Okay. I want to thank my brothers. My brothers and my sisters, some of whom are here. They're all incredible people in their own way. There's 6 of them. And my nieces, two of my 6 nieces are here. And I want to thank my parents, who were really taught me the difference between right and wrong. Like, they were educators and just you know, very ethical people. And I don't know if I'll ever live up to their standard, but it's something to aspire to. I've been very lucky in my life. I didn't face the type of hardship and discrimination that the Asian pioneers faced. They were prevented from joining the professions, and their families were separated for generations. In some cases, their possessions were taken away so they could be sent off to live in camps. So, you know, what can I do? It's my job. If I can honor our pioneers through my work, that gives me pleasure. As Wei Sin Choi said last year when he was given an award, much more deserving than mine, I might add, but nevertheless, he said, you know, if you think about those pioneers, we all stand on their shoulders, and their contribution should never be forgotten. So, thank you very much. Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Thanks, Margaret, for your nice